Guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle and I am the owner of Damn Fancy Creations. If you guys are new to my channel, I do want to let you know that you can catch my content in two other places. I have a large tutorial group on Facebook as well as a smaller patron group where I offer exclusive discounts, free files, and group challenges each month. If that sounds like something that would interest you guys, I am going to link both groups in the description below. For today's tutorial, we are doing another striped tumbler. I know, I have been doing so many striped cups lately. I don't know why. They're just fun to do. I am just finding different ways to kind of dress these up. You know, I don't even know how some of this stuff comes to me. It'll click when I'm doing something and it's like, oh, I gotta get that on a cup right now. So today's tutorial actually came to me when I was trimming some scrapbook paper because it needed to fit in a box and the box was a little bit smaller than the scrapbook paper. So I had to cut about an inch off of the scrapbook paper. So I had all of these inch-long strips of scrapbook paper and I didn't want to just throw it away. And I just thought maybe I can just wrap a tumbler with it. So that's what I did. I got this scrapbook paper at Hobby Lobby and I really thought it was fun. They're kind of watercolored pumpkins. And then I picked up this new cranberry spray paint at Walmart the other day and I just thought, oh, that would go really good with that pumpkin scrapbook paper that I have. So that's what I created. I know a lot of you guys may feel intimidated by scrapbook paper, so I will just kind of give you some tips and tricks that I may have learned that might help you guys out, you know, and feel a little bit better about using scrapbook paper on your tumblers because they can be super fun. Hobby Lobby usually has tons of different patterns for you guys to choose from, and I have really enjoyed using scrapbook paper on my tumblers lately. So if you guys are ready to see how I created this fun striped tumbler with some pumpkin scrapbook paper, let's get started. Alright guys, so this is the tumbler we're going to start with. I did prep it by sanding and then spray painted it white with a flat white and then spray painted it with a cranberry color. And now I have my scrapbook paper strips. The cranberry color I will link in the description. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. So for these little strips, you know, I wasn't super picky about the space between them, but I know for sure that I wanted the bottom piece to be a full piece of scrapbook paper. I did not want it to cut funny. I wanted to be sure that I had enough space to allow me to seal the paper in really good with Mod Podge. So I did not want it against the edge. So that's pretty much how I based where I was going to place my paper strips. So for this scrapbook paper, one thing you have to make sure you do is seal it very, very well because this is just paper, and if it gets wet with water or something, then it will definitely show under epoxy. So we're going to seal it with Mod Podge. I have since learned that you can seal this with Quick Coat as well. But I do know that some spray paint reacts differently to some sealers, so I definitely did not want my cranberry color to kind of rub off onto the paper. So I just stuck with Mod Podge for this tutorial. So I am just taking my paper and wrapping it around my tumbler. This tumbler is a straight tumbler. It is not a tapered option, so I was not concerned with the paper not wrapping around the tumbler correctly. And we're just going to trim it a little bit. And since this scrapbook paper already has pumpkins going every which way, it is really not very noticeable if the seams do not match up exactly. If this was a straight pattern or a pattern with characters on it, then the seam would be more noticeable. So you will just have to take that into consideration based on whatever type of scrapbook paper you choose. I like to pick patterns like this so that where the seam overlaps, it will not be as noticeable. And a little tip, if you're doing patterns like this or leopard print or things like that, you can always go back with paint or alcohol inks and touch up the areas where the seams meet and kind of disguise that seam a little bit. So now we're going to add our second stripe. And once you get the paper on your tumbler with the Mod Podge, it's almost kind of like water slide. You can move it around a little bit because the Mod Podge is pretty, liquidy. So you can kind of slide the piece of paper up or down wherever you need it to be. And also another tip when doing this option, if your paper has a noticeable direction to it, this one did have all the stems pointing the same direction pretty much. So I did want to make sure that I was laying my paper on correctly so that all the stems are facing upward. So right now you guys can see that I'm kind of sliding my paper up a little bit just to kind of even out some of these lines. I was not really too picky about it. I'm not somebody who has to have things exactly the same distance apart from each other. I'm one of those people who likes odd numbers, odd things, so perfection isn't necessarily something that I'm super concerned with. If you are, then it would probably be best to measure the distance between them, just in case you want it to be exactly the same, but I really wasn't too concerned with that aspect. So right now I am just going around this paper and just pressing it down into the tumbler. I am just kind of squeezing out any excess Mod Podge, making sure there are no air bubbles trapped underneath this paper. And I am going to set this to the side and let it dry for a minute. So now I am coming back to this tumbler, and now that the Mod Podge has had a chance to dry a little bit, I am just going back and pressing down any little pieces of the paper that may be kind of poking up or anything like that. I just want to make sure that paper is going to be sealed in really, really well. So I'm taking my brush again, and this time we are going to brush Mod Podge on top of the scrapbook paper. You definitely want to focus on the edges because you don't want any epoxy seeping in between the scrapbook paper and the tumbler and causing wet spots. So we want to make sure that this paper is sealed very well to the tumbler. And it is best to do thin coats. You guys can see I'm not really globbing it on there. And any thicker spots I see, I am going back and kind of smoothing them out a little bit, just because I don't want huge globs of Mod Podge on there. I also don't want the Mod Podge to take forever to dry. This way we can do thinner coats a lot quicker. So I will go around and do this another 1 or 2 times so that the scrapbook paper has, you know, 3 or 4 good layers of Mod Podge on it. And then I will let it dry overnight, make sure that Mod Podge is good and dry. And then I will epoxy 2 times, and then we will be ready for our next step. So here is our tumbler after 2 layers of epoxy. I already went ahead and sanded around the top rim, exposing some of that stainless, so I will be 100% sure that we're going to get a good seal. I also added in some micro fine glitter to my second layer of epoxy, and now I have these stripes, leaves, and nail tape. Now we're going to add our striping. I like to use a mix of vinyl and nail tape. And for the vinyl, we are just going to apply it right along the edge of our scrapbook paper. That way you know it's straight and you don't have to worry about matching it up with anything. It is following right along that scrapbook paper edge. And when I cut my vinyl, you guys can see I have about a 6-inch piece of vinyl with nothing but stripes on it. I tend to cut out at least 6 inches at a time. That way I have plenty of stripes for all of the cups that I'm going to be working on. So you're not having to cut, you know, 3 or 4 stripes out at a time. For my width of my stripes, I typically make them about 0.06 to 0.06 to 0.07. But I do like mine on the thinner side. If you want your stripes a little bit more chunky, you can definitely make them thicker. And I like to use the nail tape for my thinner lines, because sometimes dealing with really, really thin vinyl can be a pain. And if you use the nail tape roll, it is a lot easier to kind of control, and you're not getting the super thin vinyl kind of stuck to everything. It's just all on the roll and really easy to apply. So right now I'm just applying my vinyl. Another tip for you guys is I space my vinyl strips apart the same length as they are. You can do that on your silhouette. I'm not sure if you can do that on your Cricut, but that way you basically get double the stripes. You can just go down and cut off the edge of the vinyl paper and you have double the amount of stripes that you printed. So that way you're not wasting any vinyl. And the nightly train is coming through. I shouldn't even say nightly. It comes through about every 15 minutes. So I have 2 more stripes to do, and then I'm going to break out the nail tape and we will add the really tiny little stripes. And I really liked how this tumbler was turning out. I just think the spray paint color and the watercolored pumpkins just went really well together, especially with the rosy gold stripes that I printed. And this rose gold vinyl came from my local vinyl shop that I always link, the Perfect Press HTV, previously known as JSI Designs. And the maple leaves is the textured Cricut vinyl. I don't use a lot of Cricut products, but this textured vinyl that they have, I believe it comes in a 3-pack at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. They have a gold, a bronzy color, and silver. I really like these colors. I use them for a lot of things. The texture just gives a little interest to the tumbler. So now we're going back with the nail tape. This is just a bronzy nail tape. The nail tape pack I have and that I will link in the description comes with, like, I don't know, 30 different colors. None of the colors are listed. It's just kind of pick whatever goes with your tumbler. And this was like a light bronzy color, so I thought it went really nicely. And for this nail tape, I am just kind of eyeballing it. I'm just spacing it a little bit away from the vinyl that I just laid. It's pretty easy just to roll your tumbler as you apply the nail tape and get it pretty straight. You can also lift it back up. It's real easy to reposition if you need to. So I decided to go one stripe above the vinyl and one stripe below the vinyl. You guys can lay your nail tape however you want to. If you just want it on the cranberry color, you can definitely do that. If you would rather have it on the pumpkin tumbler or the pumpkin paper, you can do that as well. Y'all make these your own. So I will just kind of let this video play for those of you that are visual learners and like to see how I do things more than once. If you guys would rather skip ahead to the part where I lay the leaves, you can definitely do that as well. And Birdie is trying to get my attention. And she wants me to come out of my screened-in porch and play with her, ball with her. I play with this dog all day, y'all. Corgis are so active. And she's still a puppy too, so. But they're super fun dogs to have. And I can definitely tell it is getting to be fall time here in Georgia. We have tons of squirrels and deer in our backyard, and right now I'm just listening to them like rustle through all of the fallen leaves. That has recently just started this past week. Before, you know, there was just grass on the ground, but now there's all of the fallen leaves that they're running through. And applying this little nail tape is probably the most time-consuming part, just because it is so thin that you just have to go slow to make sure you don't break it or get it all wonky looking. But I think that adding these really thin little strips definitely just take the tumbler to another level, in my opinion. I had one more stripe, guys, and then we're done with stripes. And I did decide to add one at the top, just to kind of keep the uniformity of 2 stripes on the red paint. And sorry, my head is in the way. I know, I apologize for my head being in the way often. Sometimes I forget that I'm filming and just kind of get in the groove of applying this vinyl. Alright, so now that we're done with stripes, I just kind of go around the cup and kind of pat it all down just to make sure that none of this nail tape or vinyl is going to lift. I will seal this with quick coat before I epoxy, especially since I'm using the textured vinyl that tends to repel epoxy and does not stick well. So I definitely will seal all of this with quick coat before I epoxy. So for my leaves, I like to kind of place them kind of sporadically around. I kind of alternate how they line up around the tumbler so that they're not, you know, up and down. I will have to just show you guys what I'm talking about instead of trying to explain it. And I am not pushing these down all the way either. I just am going to lightly just press kind of one side down just to make sure I have them where I want them. So there were a couple that I wanted kind of spaced out a little more. I should have had my little CC DIY tweezers down here, but you know. And since this vinyl is textured, if you can pull it up, you really will not be able to tell that you pulled it up. Unlike the metallic vinyl that wrinkles super bad, or the holographic vinyl that wrinkles really bad. So I was just kind of looking around the tumbler to see if I wanted to move any more of them. Maybe space them out a little bit. And if you want to get technical, you can definitely measure them out if you want to. I am just not somebody that is good with math or numbers. You know, I hate to admit it, but I really am like terrible at that stuff. So trying to get my brain to figure out how many leaves should go around the cup and divide it by numbers is just not my thing. I'm also not somebody who really cares if it's 100% perfect. That's just me, my style. If you are somebody that likes perfection, then definitely go and measure before you put the leaves down. But here are all my leaves kind of pressed down now. And for the second section of leaves, I'm going to place the leaves in between the leaves on the top section. So they're kind of staggered. And there's that train again. I told you it came every 15 minutes. So now that we have our first section of leaves established, it's a lot easier just to go and place the second section of leaves in between the leaves of the first section. And then for the third section of leaves, we are going to line them up with the leaves in the first section and then stagger them or place them in between the leaves of the second section. If you would rather have all your leaves line up straight, you can definitely do that as well. But I just prefer the offset look. And once you have put the final leaf on your tumbler, I will let the vinyl sit and kind of adhere for a little bit. And then I will go and seal this with quick coat. And once the quick coat has dried, I will apply at least 2 more layers of epoxy. I like to apply 2 layers of epoxy over any vinyl or decals that I do. But that is pretty much it, you guys, for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And here are some finished pictures of what it looked like. I love the colors. They just all came together, as well as the textured leaves. It almost makes them look like real leaves, like you would see crumpled fall leaves. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope y'all are able to draw inspiration and make your own fun fall themed tumbler. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Both will be linked in the description. Thanks for watching.